Tehran, Iran, Pasteur Street, 9:47 a.m., February 28, 2026. The city is already awake. A fruit vendor rolls his cart down a narrow alley. A motorcycle swerves past a slow-moving bus. Children in backpacks walk along the pavement. It is a normal Saturday morning in one of the largest cities in the Middle East. And high above an ordinary intersection, a camera turns slightly on its pole, the way it always does, watching everything below. Nobody looks up at it. Nobody ever does. But somewhere, thousands of kilometers away, someone is watching its feed, patiently, methodically, without ever being detected. In a matter of minutes, 30 missiles will hit a compound a few blocks from that camera. The people who fired those missiles knew exactly Khamenei was inside, not because of a last-minute tip, not because of luck, but because of that camera Iran installed to watch its own people. This is the story of how that happened. Tehran, 2019 through 2022. After years of street protests shook the Islamic Republic, the Iranian government made a decision. It would cover its capital in eyes. Thousands of surveillance cameras went up across Tehran, on lampposts above busy intersections, at the entrances of metro stations and government buildings. The official justification was traffic management. The real purpose was something else entirely. The government used the footage to identify protesters in real time, flag known dissidents, and help security forces respond quickly when crowds gathered in the streets. The system worked. Faces were matched to government databases. Arrests followed. Protests that once spread organically became harder to sustain when participants knew they were being identified while standing in the crowd. It was a powerful network. Connected, centralized, always on. And because it had to function at city scale, it was also networked in ways that left it exposed. Because any system that connects to the outside world can, in theory, be entered from the outside world. Tel Aviv, Israel. Unit 8200 is the largest single unit in the Israeli Defense Forces. They are not trained to fire weapons. They are selected for their ability to learn fast and adapt to problems that have no fixed solutions. And then they are trained to listen, intercept, and break into systems that others believe are secure. It operates one of the largest signals intelligence bases in the world, located in the Negev Desert, capable of monitoring communications across the Middle East, Europe, and parts of Asia and Africa simultaneously. But Unit 8200 does more than intercept signals. It builds tools, algorithms, AI systems, targeting infrastructure designed to turn raw surveillance data into usable intelligence, what people inside the directorate sometimes called a target production machine. For Israel, intelligence is designed to enable a strategy. For years, one target sat at the center of that strategy. A man who was, by design, almost impossible to find. Tehran, Pasteur Street compound. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had led the Islamic Republic since 1989. He did not use a smartphone. He did not appear on public schedules. His motorcade varied its routes. His meetings were never announced in advance. He had survived decades because he understood how surveillance worked and made himself a difficult subject. The question that Unit 8200 spent years trying to answer was, how do you locate someone who knows you are looking for them? The answer they arrived at was to stop looking for the man directly. You watch the people around him instead, the bodyguards, the drivers, the security rotation at his compound. Their patterns, repeated over months and years, would eventually reconstruct his location on any given day. This is called pattern of life analysis, and it requires something that very few intelligence operations have: time and patience at scale. Israel had both. Pasteur Street, Tehran, years before February 2026. According to reporting by the Financial Times, Israeli intelligence gained access to Tehran's traffic camera network years before the strike. Not one or two cameras, not a handful of strategic intersections, nearly all of them. Footage was encrypted and transmitted in real time to servers in Tel Aviv and southern Israel. Most of what the cameras captured was broad background data. The rhythms of city life, traffic patterns, crowd density around certain buildings at certain times. Useful, but not specific enough on its own. Then analysts identified one camera with a particular angle. It was positioned in a way that gave them a partial view of where members of Khamenei's security team parked their personal vehicles. Not the official motorcade cars, but the ones they drove from home each morning before beginning their shift. From license plates, analysts traced home addresses. From the timing of arrivals and departures, they reconstructed shift schedules. From shift schedules, they mapped which individual guards were assigned to protect which senior officials on any given day. That one camera angle turned a traffic feed into an organizational chart of the people closest to the most guarded man in Iran. IDF, Military Intelligence Directorate, Tel Aviv. Unit 8200 fed everything into the system. Artificial intelligence algorithms then built detailed profiles on members of Khamenei's protection detail. Military intelligence teams processed all of this into daily operational briefings. Over years, the picture became extraordinarily precise. Analysts eventually understood the compound's rhythms well enough that a deviation from the norm, an unusual vehicle, a changed parking pattern, the arrival of a security team that was not scheduled, would register as a signal before any human analyst could consciously identify why it felt different. One intelligence official summarized the result in a single sentence, later quoted by the Financial Times. "We knew Tehran like we know Jerusalem, and when you know a place as well as you know the street you grew up on, you notice a single thing that's out of place." Israel was not working alone in this. While Unit 8200 and Mossad were building their portrait of the compound from the outside, the CIA had a human source, a person with access to information about the Iranian leadership's internal schedule. The nature and position of that source have not been made public. What is known is that this source provided something the cameras and algorithms could not independently generate. February 27, 2026, Washington, D.C. The original operational plan had set Friday night as the start of the joint U.S.-Israeli assault on Iran. Darkness degrades radar effectiveness. It creates disorientation on the ground. Then the intelligence picture changed. The CIA confirmed that Khamenei would be at his residential compound on Saturday morning, February 28th, and that several of Iran's most senior military and security commanders would be gathering at the same location at the same time. The decision was made to delay, to move the strike from Friday night to Saturday morning. February 28, 2026, pre-dawn, Israel. Iran's air defense systems were on elevated alert. The country had been anticipating an attack for days. Radar operators were watching. Anti-aircraft systems were primed. The entire defensive posture of the Iranian military was oriented toward what any rational adversary would do: attack at night. Israeli fighter jets had been airborne for hours before the missiles arrived, flying routes carefully calculated to place them at the correct position and altitude at the correct moment. No single segment of the flight path revealed the intention. And because the planes had been in the air so long, there was no sudden surge in radar activity that might have triggered an early warning. Simultaneously, components of roughly a dozen mobile phone towers near Pasteur Street were quietly disabled. Not cut entirely. Just enough to make phones in the area register as busy when called. The distinction matters. A complete signal outage would have been noticed immediately. Busy signals are background noise. Anyone trying to reach Khamenei's protection detail in the minutes before the strike heard nothing but the sound of a line in use. Pasteur Street, Tehran, February 28, 2026, 9:30 a.m. The street looked completely ordinary. People were moving through their Saturday routines. The cameras on their poles were turning and recording, the same as every other day for years. On servers in Israel, the footage from those cameras was confirming what the analytical models had predicted. The vehicles belonging to Khamenei's security rotation were present and parked in their expected positions. The pattern matched thousands of previous mornings of data. The CIA source had sent final confirmation hours earlier. 2 independent sources. 2 confirmations. 9:47 a.m. 30 precision missiles struck the compound on Pasteur Street. The weapons used were variants of the Sparrow missile system, capable of striking a target as small as a dining table from a distance exceeding 1,000 kilometers. The aircraft that fired them never crossed into Iranian airspace. The strike was over before Iranian air defense systems had fully processed what they were seeing on their radar screens. Within hours, the Israeli side was quietly confident. The public confirmation arrived the following morning. Tehran, March 1st, 2026. Iranian state television broadcast a single sentence. The supreme leader of the Islamic Republic had died. Tehran, days after. Black mourning banners went up on overpasses across the city. Crowds gathered at public squares. A temporary 3-member governing council took power while Iran's political establishment tried to figure out what came next. The traffic cameras on Pasteur Street were still there, still turning on their poles, still recording. There is something that stays with anyone who follows this story to its end. Iran built that surveillance network as an instrument of state power, to watch protesters, to track people the government considered dangerous, to protect the authority of those at the top of the Islamic Republic. The cameras were designed, at their core, to protect the regime. And for years, that same network had been transmitting its footage to people who were using it to build the most detailed possible map to the leadership it was supposed to protect. The system built to protect the people at the top became the system that located them. There is an old principle that runs through the history of intelligence work. It is almost never the reinforced front door that gets you in. It is the side entrance that everyone overlooked, the one that seemed too ordinary to bother securing. In this case, it was a camera on a lamppost on a street corner in central Tehran, pointed at a parking lot. Nobody looked up at it. Nobody ever does. Until someone did.